Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Zebec, Binance and Coinbase listing. Let's talk about it. Now, before I get started, I want to make it clear to you all, I am not a financial advisor. Nothing that you see in this video is financial advice. So please always make sure to do your own independent research. With that being said, let's get straight into the video. Now, I know we're getting a lot of talk about Coinbase, Binance, etc. So the first question you're asking yourself is this actually going to happen? Now, from my opinion, based on the research that I've done, based on projects like Zebec, yes, I do see a Zebec, Coinbase, and Binance listing. When will that happen? Who knows, right? It could happen a month from now, it could happen 3 months from now, it could happen a year from now. But what I do know is I'm looking forward to it, and the question that you all need to ask yourselves is, what is the impact? What is the effect of a Coinbase and Binance listing? That's all you should care about right now. Why? Because we're all in this project early, and that's where all the winners are made, right? People rarely make life-changing money when they buy a cryptocurrency project that goes from, let's just say, Zebec right now at just under a $400 million market cap, and then they buy it when it gets listed on a major exchange like a Coinbase and Binance. Well, by that point, the gains have already been dissipated, right? Zebec will probably already be above a $2-3 billion market cap, etc. Right? But let's talk about how this affects us if and when it does happen. Now, the reason why a Coinbase and Binance listing is important is because, number one, it adds that credibility. And number two, we see a liquidity surge, right? Listing on a top exchange massively increases accessibility of the project and liquidity. Now, right now, buying Zebec likely requires, well, not likely, it requires using smaller exchanges, etc. Whereas, on Binance and Coinbase, millions of retail traders can suddenly gain access with one click, right? So the impact is more buyers equals more demand, and this often pushes price up along with the market cap. And this leads on to that short-term pump that we always see, right? So historically, tokens often see a sharp price spike right after a tier 1 listing. We've seen this time and time again. And to be honest with you, this is how a lot of people lose a lot of money, right? Because this is all due to hype, speculation, and FOMO. But what typically happens is early investors like you and I that have been buying at these lows. Again, if you missed out on these updates, it means you're not subscribed to the channel. So make sure you subscribe right now so you do not miss out on another Zebec update. You don't miss out on any more of these major buy calls I've given out on this channel. But all the people that bought at the low, even the people that are buying now, ultimately, they say they won't, but a lot of people start selling. And this is what leads to that massive sell-off once an exchange listing occurs, right? It usually happens, 24 hours afterwards, sometimes on the same day after that first initial spike, right? And like I said, this is speculation, this is FOMO, right? And an example of this would be, if you look at any mid-cap altcoin, and when it pumps between 50 to 200% within days on Coinbase and Binance, right after that pump, we get that major sell-off. But it could add an extra 2x, 3x if liquidity and hype converge, right? So that's good news for us as early adopters. Bad news for those that are buying on Coinbase listing, on the Binance listing. So that's just to make it clear. I never buy a project once it's listed on a mainstream, a tier 1 exchange. I typically look to take profit. This is another strategy that we can talk about in more depth in my free Telegram group. Just click the link in my description and get access to that free Telegram group below. Again, you do need to have the Telegram app downloaded, otherwise the link will not work. But I do get more in depth onto Zebec and other projects like it, along with strategy, right? And remember, I do want to say what makes a Coinbase and Binance listing so important, because we've already spoken about what it can do for a short term in terms of those those massive spikes, the increase in liquidity, us as early investors make money, but there is a long-term advantage, right? We wouldn't just enter this project wait for it to be listed on a Binance or Coinbase, and then just sell all of our Zebec, right? That would make zero sense. Essentially, we're looking at it like a pump and dump, which I'm personally not. So the long-term effect for me is always for all of us is always a good one, right? Because if Zebec proves itself, right, in terms of real adoption, ecosystem growth, the listing creates a sustainable higher floor for its market cap, which is very, very important. And remember, being on Coinbase and Binance also attracts institutional money, which is the key word for this cycle, institutional money. And remember, this makes it eligible for inclusion in broader portfolio funds, indices, etc. So long-term legitimacy and steady growth potential is our number one focus, which is why I said I personally will be holding this project for the next 2 to 4 years. Yes, I do have strategic profit taking strategies in mind. Yes, I'm expecting Zebec to peak at some point and then sell off by around 60% or so. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you're part of that free Telegram group, because you do not want to miss out on those updates, right? But the point is here, for a long term perspective, we need to be on a major exchanges. It's a must. It's not will it happen? Is it going to happen? It quite literally has to happen for long-term success. So just to summarize, before we talk about that price action that we're expecting leading into this Fed interest rate decision, because we have 24 hours left, let me just first summarize quickly what we've just spoken about at the start of this video. So number one, short term, expect a pump. This is always hype driven, and sometimes it's very extreme. Typically, if they list during a bull cycle, which are in, or they list during the altcoin season phase, we could see an extended pump, right? We saw this in 2021, which is great for us as early adopters of Zebec. Now, medium term, we likely see retracements as traders take profits. Again, many of you say you won't take profit, but when you see that 100x or 200x or 300x, most people will take profit, right? And then the long term would be the market cap stabilizes higher if fundamentals are solid, and that's why we're holding for the next 2 to 4 years, right? So Binance listing, Coinbase listing is a great thing. We are expecting it at some point. The question is when. But let's talk about price action as we approach the Fed interest rate decision, which will be released tomorrow, right? So this, for those of you that are new to the cryptocurrency space, this is your first time, investing in any market. The reason why the Fed interest rate is so important is because ultimately it's going to set the trend for the broader market, the stock market, the equity market, the commodity market, the crypto market for the next few months. Now, the prediction is the Fed is going to pivot and cut interest rates. Again, I'm not going to bore you to death with jargon. In layman's terms, if this Fed interest rates happens, typically investors and traders start moving to higher risk assets, people start borrowing more, etc., right? So it stimulates the overall economy. Now, they're saying there's a 95% chance that this is going to happen, but it's going to be interesting to see how Zebec reacts to this interest rate cut, because as it stands, Zebec has actually been a very stable project. It's been incredible. For those of you that have been buying Zebec, since, May, obviously if you bought at the peak, which some people did. And the craziest part is some people buy right at the peak and then they're upset when, people like you and I have bought at the lows, or even people that bought at the highs but have been dollar cost averaging at the lows, or people that have been buying since the start of the year, etc. They get upset and they say, this product is no good. This product is terrible. Zebec is never going to break out, etc. It makes zero sense. Look, you bought at the top, you've been inactive, you've decided not to DCA. There's no point of projecting and getting angry about the project. Objectively speaking, Zebec has been one of the best performers of the year, right? You cannot argue with the maths. If you bought Zebec at the start of the year, once again, because this is going to silence all the haters in the comment section, if you bought Zebec at the start of the year, you're up 381%. If you bought Zebec in April, guess what? You are up 489%. Yes, that's including the drawdown. So objectively speaking, even if you bought when we gave out these free buy calls, you're currently up over 90%, right? Even if you bought in June, right, where we gave out those DCAs when price sold off, guess what? You're still up 15%. So objectively speaking, Zebec has been an absolute gem so far this year. But with that being said, we've seen that stability in price. The question is, what does Zebec do next? And this is what everybody wants to know. Now, I've given out some price targets. If you guys want to know what my end of year price target for Zebec is, just go back to my previous Zebec video where I give out that target. But of course, I'm going to update on that after the Fed interest rate decision. So make sure you subscribe for that. But just to let you all know, I think short term, we should see Zebec at least go back up to its yearly highs right on 31st of May, right? That's a 65% move. That brings us to 0.072201, right? There's a short-term target. And our midterm target would be at 0.0112830. These are my two targets that I have in mind as we approach the Fed interest rate decision. But I will say this: if you want to know exactly my strategy, you want to know what my game plan is, when I'm planning to buy, when I'm planning to cash out, etc., you can all join my Crypto Crew Premium channel. The link is in my description. We're getting all our members prepared for this Fed interest rate decision. So if you want to know exactly what I'm personally doing, join Crypto Crew Premium now. The link is in my description. But that's it for now, guys. Until the next update, seize the day.